All right, today, almost done with the chapter here. Lesson 5-4. We're going to be finding the mean. Familiar with it? Yes? Yeah? No? Okay. Another word for mean. Anybody know another word for mean in the math world? Kahan? That is correct, sir. Is the average. Now, what we're about to do is actually how your grades every 9 weeks are calculated. Okay, this is exactly how the computer figures out your grades. Okay, you find the average of the work that you do, and that's the grade you get. Okay, it's really that simple. Okay, the good news is you are allowed and will be able to use a calculator, so that's awesome. Okay, so here's how this works. First thing, let me start with is this. Okay, the measures of central tendency. I'm sure that you've probably never heard that before, which is fine. Okay, and the mean makes up one of them, right? Which is what we're going to talk about today. Okay, the other two measures of central tendency, which we will get into later, is the median and the mode. You've heard of those, yes? Okay, the last one that we're going to throw in there, yeah, I think I just heard that, is the range. Okay, but let's be very specific here. The range is not part of central tendency. Okay, listen carefully. For some reason, I don't know why, they always lump range in when we talk about the measures of central tendency. I'm going to give you a heads up right now, if you're listening. On the quiz or the test, I can't remember which one, there is a question that 90% of the kids miss every single year. And we tweak it here and there for different purposes. But what I'm trying to get at is they don't read carefully and they think that range is part of central tendency. You hearing me? Okay, don't let that happen to you. Okay, range is not part of central tendency. There are only three: mean, median, and mode. Okay, and today we're only talking about one. We're only talking about one today, and that's the mean. Okay, so we will revisit the measure of central tendency for sure, but I just wanted to throw that out there to you today so you have an idea of what we're talking about. Okay, and again, today we are only focusing on the mean. That's it. All right? All right, here we go. So finding the mean. Anybody know the definition? Anybody have any ideas? Michael? Okay, how do you do it? You're right. Anybody know how to do it? Brady, yeah? Okay. You're going to add up all the values. We call them values, or we call them data sets. Okay, you're going to add up all the values and divide by the number of values you have. And we're going to put that in practice here in a minute, and you'll see, and it's actually pretty darn easy. All right, everybody good with that? All right, so let's start with a data set here. So we have 120, 95, 101, oops, 125, 82, 108, and 90. Okay, so what you would do is on your calculator, you would add all these up. Now, you don't have to. I'm going to do it for you, but I need you to watch how this works, right? So we're going to add them all up. That's 726 is the total. Okay? Shh, just listen. 726. That's what Brady said, right? We added them all up, which he's correct. And now we go back and we physically count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I have 7 numbers in my data set. That's going to change all the time. I take that number and I divide it. That's my divisor. Okay. And when I divide that out, I get 103. So 103 is the mean of that data set. That's the average, Michael. Okay, well, we'll just go with what I have at the moment. Yeah, I'm not sure of that, but okay. All right. So, I mean, that's pretty much it. There's nothing more to that, but you got to understand the 103 is the average of all of those numbers. Okay. So if those were scores of whatever, I don't know. Okay, it would come out to 103. All right. So we got, here's another data set. So we got 30, 81, 50, 24, 15, and 64. So they're kind of all over the board here. We got a couple high ones, a couple low ones, a couple middle of the road. Okay. If we add them all up, $264. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Now, you don't have to put the numbers above. I'm just showing you that we have 6 numbers in our data set. That's all. That's the only reason I'm doing that. If we divide by 6, then we have a mean. The average is 44 of all of those numbers. Right? So for the most part, you're going to let the calculator do that work. Now, here's the catch. If you mess up one number, meaning you accidentally plug it in wrong on your calculator, right? Guess what? Throws everything off. So this is where you're allowed to use your calculator, but you got to be really careful at what you punch in. Okay, you can't afford to make one little boo-boo. All right, so you got to be careful there. All right, so both of those means came out to be whole numbers, right? All right, well, that's where I don't want you to be confused, because anything could be a data set. So now here's one with decimals. Right, we got 2.5, 4.3, 4.8, 2.7, 1.2. Okay, if we add those up, we get 15 and 5/10. And again, we got 1, 2, 3. This time we got 5 numbers in our data set. We divide by 5. Now our average, or our mean, comes out to be a decimal. Now here's what I want to say about the mean. I'm going to say the majority of the time that you find the mean is not going to be a whole number. There's no way. You're just dealing with too many numbers, even and odds, right? And dividing them by an even and odd number, that for it to come out to be a whole number most of the time is very rare, right? I guess I would say this. How many times have you looked at your grade on home access? Okay, a lot, right? How many times have you just seen it say 91%? Like, like never. Okay, so point being is that's the mean. That number that you're looking at for your grade is the mean. It's the average. It's highly unlikely that it's going to be a whole number. Fair enough. Okay. And at the moment, I guess we can say, I hate to give you a stipulation of we're going to go to the hundreds place or the thousands place. If the number continues on forever, which it probably isn't more than maybe 1 or 2 problems that you'll ever encounter, I would always just go to the hundreds place or the thousands place, and that's good enough. Does that make sense? Okay. Everybody go to that? That's pretty simple stuff. All right. Let's talk about this. An outlier. Anybody know what an outlier is? Okay, that's good. All right, let's define it. Okay, it's a data value much greater or much less than the other values. Now, this outlier thing is really important. Okay, and I'll put this into your world for you. So, since we're talking about grades, right? So, you start off the 9 weeks, you do really good, right? You got 95, 96, 90, 91, 92, 95, 90, right? You're cruising right along, man. And then all of a sudden, you forgot that we were having a quiz, and oops, I got a 5. Okay. So my point being is 5, let's be honest. The 5 in there is not a normal score that you normally get based on what you did before, right? Okay. So that is called an outlier. Something happened. You forgot to study, you didn't understand the material, whatever, it doesn't matter. Okay? That's an outlier. Now, vice versa can happen. Right? You start off the 9 weeks and you got a 20, a 25, a 27, a 30, a 40, or whatever. And then all of a sudden, mom and dad get on your case. And all of a sudden, you study. And all of a sudden, you get a 95. Okay? So it can go the other way too. Okay? An outlier can be very small or it can be very big. Okay? But here, I'm going to show you this is why the outlier is important. Because they're going to ask you, find the mean with the outlier. And then they're going to ask you to take it out and find the mean without the outlier in there. So it's going to affect, the mean is going to affect, right? Or I should say the outlier is going to affect the mean. Because think about that. Go back to the first example, all those high scores that you got, and you got a 5. What's going to happen to your average? It's going to drop. That's correct. It's going to get a little smaller, right? And vice versa, all of your small data at the beginning, and then all of a sudden you study and you get the 95, what's going to happen to your mean? It's going to go up. Okay, you have to understand this because it's going to affect it. And you're going to have to find out both. And I'll show you where most of the children in the past have made their boo-boo. All right, so here's our data. Here's our data set. All right, so we got 48, 50, 55, 68, 37, and 50. Okay, which one do you think is the outlier? That one? Yeah, right. It doesn't fit in there, right? That one doesn't fit. It's not close to the other ones, per se, right? Okay, so here's what we're going to do. First thing is we're going to find the mean with the outlier. That means that you are going to add that in the data set. Okay, so if we add all of that up, we get 308. Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. There are 7 values in our data set. So our average comes out to be 44. Does that make sense, right? Okay, here's where I'm just going to be honest with you. This is where the careless mistakes happen, the boo-boos. And now they're going to say, find the mean without the outlier in there. So you're going to take that out. So our value then would be 300. Now watch, though, this is where most people make their mistake. Yes, very good. Nice job, Michael. You can't, if we're taking the outlier out, that means that we are not counting the outlier in the data set. We now only have 6 numbers to divide. That's the most common mistake. Okay, you just got to be careful there. Right? And then when we do that, look what happens to our mean when we take out the low number. Just like your grades. Right? If you're averaging an 80% and you get something higher than an 80 on a quiz or a test, what do you think happens to your grade? It goes up. Vice versa is if you're scoring 90 and all of a sudden you get a score that's lower than a 90, guess what happens to your grade? It goes down. Okay, because that's not the average of your work. You're doing something less than the average. All right, here we go. One more. Okay. So if you've noticed along the way there in your notes, we've done single digit numbers, double digit numbers, decimals, it doesn't matter. The data set can be anything. And we're going to talk about that here in a minute. Okay. It doesn't matter what type of a number it is. Okay. It could be decimals. It could be fractions. They're not going to give you them, I don't believe, but it could be fraction. It could be anything. Okay. So if we were to start with, what's the outlier here? Let's identify the outlier. Masa? 900 is our outlier. That is correct. It's either a number, and it's going to be really, really high, or it's going to be really, really low. Okay, so our other one was low. This one is high. All right, so if we find the mean with the outlier, that means we're going to add 900 in there. So if we add them up, we get 3,336. And we have 6 numbers. And that's going to be a mean of 556. So the average number of all of those added together is 556. If we take the outlier out, which is our 900, we're left with 2,436. And we're going to divide by, that is correct. Make sure that's the most common boo-boo right there. Okay, that's 487 and 50 cents, some change there. So look at this. So by taking the 900 out, we've dropped 60, 70, 75, 70, over 70 points. That's huge when it comes to the mean. Okay, so the outlier can have a huge effect. I hope you're hearing me, because that's like a quiz question. The outlier can have a huge effect on the mean. Okay, whether up or down, depending on what you got. Now, I just briefly mentioned about the types of numbers that we did today, right? Okay, if you're looking in your book, though, they're going to give you your data in tables, charts, graphs, bar graphs, pictographs, line plots. They're going to give them to you in all different kinds of ways. They're not normally, I mean, sometimes they will, but they're not just going to give them to you in straight numbers. Here you go. Okay, probably to begin with, yes. Why do you think that they put them in tables, charts, graph bars, any sort of... Emma, what do you think? To make it more challenging. That's absolutely right. I mean, children, this isn't hard. Let's be honest. You add them up and you divide by how many there are, right? So you got to look at things like legends, right? Like a pictograph. How much is one of the pictures worth? It's not always worth one, right? So Emma's exactly right. They're putting these things in here to make it more challenging, to make it more difficult, to make you pay attention. Okay? That's the only reason that it's in there. All right. Any questions on how to find the mean? Everybody good? It really isn't that difficult of stuff. Okay, so today we got 1 through 15. We're going to do the odds. Obviously, the odds only. Okay, now you got to be careful, though. When it says find the mean with and without the outlier, that's 2 different answers for one problem. You got to have both. Okay? All right. Good luck.